February is a short month, so why not read some short books as well? So in this video, I'm going to be recommending some of my favorite books that are all under 150 pages. Last year, I made a video on even shorter books at 100 pages, which I will link in the description below. But you guys seem to really like the video, so here we are again. If you're new here, hi, welcome, I'm Katerina. I talk about books every week, and if that's something you're into, why not subscribe? Okay, so I'm going to be ordering these books in terms of page length from the shortest to the longest, according to the page count thingy on Goodreads. So kicking off, my first book coming in at 107 pages is Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. If you're similar to my age and also British, I'm sure mentioning that book just gave you war flashbacks, and fair enough, because we did not need to know why Curly kept his hand in a glove full of Vaseline at 14 years old. Shout out to the British education system for that one, that was crazy. And to my other international viewers who does not have a clue what's going on, we had to study this book in school for our GCSE exams, which was interesting to say the least. But anyway, this novella is set in America during the Great Depression, and we follow two displaced migrant ranch workers. One is intelligent but struggling financially, and the other is his best friend who is mentally disabled. They dream of having their own land and having the freedom to do what they please, but they soon realize the harsh reality of life for marginalized people in 1930s America. It explores themes of loneliness, friendship, and the illusion of the American dream. Maybe because I read this book at such a young age, but it had a really great impact on me. I mean, I read this book about like 13, 14 years ago, and I still remember the whole plot. The ending is also so shocking and emotional that it has stayed with me ever since. And the story as a whole is so tragic yet touching, and it really does leave a lasting impression. Especially because almost 100 years on, marginalized people in America are still facing the same issues. And it's crazy to read such an old book that still talks about this false promise of the American dream that's happening today. Like, you think the American government cares about the poorest people now? Absolutely not. A lot of Western governments don't. It's all about making profit for them. And the book really focuses on the impact that it had on citizens during the time in their daily lives. And there is a reason that we studied this. Yes, it is short for the attention span of school children, but it's also incredibly profound because you as a reader are constantly peeling back these layers to find the deeper meaning within. I love this book. I think it was great, and it's definitely one to read, especially with such short page count. The next book I also think that's great, coming in at 127 pages, is The Prophet by Kahlil Gibran. This is a spiritual poetry book that has 26 fables in it, written by a Lebanese-American author. The story follows a prophet who is about to depart from a fictional city to board a ship that will carry him home. But he's stopped by a group of people that want to discuss topics of life and the human condition with him. Not gonna lie, I would probably be in that group of people. But the book is divided into many chapters which talks about the different aspects of life, including marriage, giving, work, laws, pain, passion, friendship, beauty, etc. This is one of those very comforting books that remind you what the meaning of life is. The beauty of it is that you can read it again and again and again, and you can interpret the advice differently depending on where you are in life. There will be certain things that will be profound to you at 20 years old, and then you will read it again and you'll find other things in it that are profound when you're 30. I read this book like 5 years ago when I was 22, and I'm already excited to read it again because I'm sure that I will relate to different parts of it now. I genuinely think that this book has timeless wisdom that is just applicable to any age. And to write something that is so universally relatable as it explores key human experiences regardless of culture or background is so grounding. It makes you realize that you are more similar to other people than you think, and that's something that's really comforting. Also, it goes without saying that the language here is so beautiful and poetic. You can read the book out loud and it literally sounds like verses in a song. It's just so musical to listen to. I absolutely love it, and I'm genuinely excited to read this again soon. The book is actually available as a PDF online, which I will link it down below if you want to read it for free. The third book, coming in at 128 pages, is Small Things Like These by Keegan. So this is set during a particularly hard-hitting winter in a small Irish town in the 1980s. The story unfolds in the lead up to Christmas, and we follow a coal merchant who is a very devoted family man with 5 daughters. However, whilst working, he stumbles across a very dark secret that's hidden by his local convent. The knowledge of this challenges his own moral compass and the town's silence on the matter, leading him to decide whether he can question and even go against the beloved Catholic Church. Firstly, this is an excellent book to read in this time of year because it's literally set in winter, which I don't know where you guys live right now, but in the UK it is still currently freezing, so this is a very atmospheric read. But I mainly love this book in particular because it is so historically and socially important. It sheds light on the tragedy of Ireland's Magdalen laundries, which is something I had never heard of before I picked this book up, and it's so necessary to learn about institutional abuse, especially when it comes from religious bodies, and how this ended up affecting so many women over so many years. And it's heartbreaking but vital to learn about the oppression and the violence that they faced. That aside, I really loved the main character because he was just very quietly heroic and full of empathy. You come to understand his internal struggles with his sense of duty of being a good citizen, but also his kindness. And it makes him very compelling and relatable to read. I honestly love this protagonist so much. I also very recently watched the film with Cillian Murphy that was honestly incredible. I would recommend you to watch that as well. But overall, I adored the messaging that small moments and gestures can have a big impact. And overall, it made me reflect on small things that other people have done to me that have really influenced me in a big way. And I hope when you read it, you also feel the same way too. Another book that influenced me for the better, coming in at 135 pages, is Timecode of a Face by Ruth Ozeki. This memoir is literally about a woman who stares at her face in the mirror for 3 hours, and basically writes down her thought process while doing so. And so in the book, she explores a range of concepts and notions, including growing up post-World War II as half Japanese and half Caucasian American, being a public figure as an author, and whilst also quietly practicing Buddhism, and also aging and her parents aging, and how this has affected her growing up. Straight away, I love the unique concept of this book. I thought it was really great. It was very gorgeously intimate and thought-provoking, and I felt like I knew the author so well by the end, because she was really open and honest about herself, and it was really compelling to read. Also, it overall felt very meditative, because she calmly reflects on her identity and self-perspection based on her own experiences. And after reading it, I genuinely wanted to stare at my own face in the mirror for 3 hours and see what I came up with. But I kind of do that anyway whenever I edit my videos, so I'd probably get sick of looking at myself. I also really enjoyed how the author blended personal reflection with philosophy, as she talks a lot about spirituality mixed with personal anecdotes. And it gave me a really different and new perspective in how to view the world, which is always something really refreshing and cool. And yeah, overall it just felt very new and different, and I surprisingly liked it. And the length of this book was just right in what the author wanted to explore, so I think this was very well done. Another book I thought was very well done, coming in at 141 pages, is Animal Farm by George Orwell. Again, another book I read at 14 years old, but this one literally was my political awakening. This famous novel is a political allegory where a group of farm animals revolt against their human farmer and aim to create a society where all the animals are equal and free. However, the power ends up corrupting the pigs and they end up all as tyrants. And the story ultimately critiques the Russian Revolution and the rise of the Soviet Union, essentially warning against totalitarianism and the abuse of power. I actually think this was the first ever political novel I read, and I remember being amazed by the simplicity but also the powerful symbolism of it all. And the fact that this book has been banned and is still actually being banned today is absolutely wild, because this novel literally spills the tea in governments manipulating their citizens through power and control in terms of class inequality, and how the greed of the few can affect the many and ultimately destroy society. Oh my god, bro, I could literally go on for hours about how important this book is. I mean, there is a reason that we're taught it in schools. And if you didn't read this in school, please read it now, because with the current political climate, with everything that's going on in the world, this book is more relevant than ever, because it is such a smart and simple allegory of government manipulation. And no matter how much we strive for equality, those corrupt individuals in power will always abuse the system. This book is just so important, and I really urge you to read it as soon as possible. Another book you should definitely read as soon as possible, coming in at 144 pages, is Minor Detail by adania Shibli. This is a small but incredibly mighty novella, and it's split into two parts. The first part recounts Israeli soldiers occupying Palestinian land in 1949, and they commit a brutal crime against a Palestinian girl. And the second part occurs decades later, where a different woman is devoted to uncovering the truth of this minor detail that happened a long time ago. Firstly, well done to the author for writing this book. We need more literature from Palestinian authors that detail the atrocities that these people have faced, not just in the past few years, but literally since first Western involvement about 100 years ago. And to be honest, this was really hard to read. Like, it was published in 2017, but it talked about places that literally no longer exist because they have been bombed and destroyed due to the genocide from Israel and the West. And it's so weird to read about places that now only exist in literature. But books like this are so important to prove that places like this once existed, and this is how they were, and this is what the people that were like were once there. And this is a particularly important topic to me, and I'm going to start crying if I think about it for too long, because I am Iraqi and Ukrainian, and I have been through the absolute ringer of my homelands being destroyed due to Western governments wanting to make profit. What a time to be alive. But anyway, back to the book because I've ranted about politics with too much in one video. This book is really just fantastic because it hones into the daily life that people have to face under occupation. We see how restricted people are in the fact that they risk their lives going to work and seeing their family. And it overall made me very grateful to be where I am, but also so angry that other people have to face these atrocities in daily life. And especially with everything going on right now, this is such an important read, and it's something very short and quick enough to get through. And I would also recommend you to read it because at the end of the day, reading is an act of resistance. And finally, the very last book I'm going to be talking about, coming in at 145 pages, is Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson. This book follows the lives of two young black Southeast Londoners falling in love after they meet at a mutual's drinks. The book explores a lot about class and race as these two won scholarships to private schools and how they're now both struggling as artists to belong. She is a dancer and he is a photographer. And the novella tracks how their friendship moves into deeper open waters of their intense and intimate relationship as they open up about their fears and anxieties. And we delve into themes that explore masculinity, the trauma of racism, and identity exhaustion. This was a very sobering and incredible read about the harsh realities that comes with being a person of colour in London, especially being Black British. And even though London is a very diverse area and generally has very forward attitude in terms of cultural acceptance, at least that's been my experience from living here, there are pockets of areas and instances where unfortunately that is not always the case. And this is such a powerful read because it showcases how exhausting it is to live in a country where you were born, where blackness is rarely celebrated and often rejected. And as February is Black History Month, I would very much recommend you to read this now to enlighten yourself on the issues that Black people face in everyday life. And we should encourage and support more literature like this. And even with that aside, this book is also a very intimate and beautiful love story. There are some absolutely gorgeous and poetic passages of these two falling in love, and the vulnerability and also the hopefulness of it all. It actually kind of made me very weirdly nostalgic of when I was first seeing someone. And it's this duality of the characters exploring love but also whilst faced with hate from other people. I absolutely adored this book and I really think that you would too. And there you have it. Those are some of my favourite books that are under 150 pages. If you can't tell, I love intense and political literature that educate me but also make me feel something. Have you read any of these books? And if you have, what did you think of them? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video and want me to do a video on my favourite books under 200 pages, then please drop a like down below. And if you enjoyed this content overall, please subscribe. I make new videos yapping about books every single Tuesday. Feel free to also follow me on my Goodreads where I update what books I read in real time, and also feel free to follow me on my Instagram. I post a lot more personal stuff on there, but I also post books as soon as I finish reading them, letting you know what they're about and also what I rated them out of 10. And once again, thank you so much for being here and watching me. Your continued love and support honestly mean the absolute world to me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!